Just perhaps highlight some of the items on this framework for the palliative. There will be 5 trucks of rice to each 36 state governors, and 100,000 bags of rice, that's what it is, and 40,000 bags of maize and fertilizers is what will be given to the state governors. And like our correspondent Femi Akonde mentioned, that 52% of that monies will be given as grants. And there has been reaction to this matter. NLC is not happy with this move by the government, and I am also skeptical with this move. I laud the fact that the government has decided to give this monies, but we recall the COVID era, how things were with palliatives. So I am not really comfortable that we are giving out palliatives, except Nigerians, persons who are citizens of these states, indigents of these states, put pressure on their governors to be transparent with how they go about the disbursement of whether it be it the grains, the grants, whatever it is, so as there can be some level of accountability, transparency, and trust in the government at the end of the day. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, the concerns of NLC and so many Nigerians, as you mentioned, is really is cogent. And at this time, it is actually right, because if you see antecedents and how things have been in the past, of course, every Nigerian has the right to be skeptical about what government is doing, how they're doing it, and so on. But recall that the social register that was used for palliatives, or was used for all of the social money transfers and conditional cash transfers and all of that, recall that the government had said it had to be reorganized so that there can be comprehensive inclusion and also to cover more people.
How did they do that?
Recall that the state governments were not involved in the previous one. Now they said state governments have to be involved in it. Other stakeholders have to be involved in it so that it makes it more comprehensive. Now, the National Economic Council meeting that was held, Executive Council that was held, those were some of the issues that were discussed. And I want to believe that this time around, the approach will change, because this government would have learned from the past what had happened to palliatives that were looted in different places. Of course, we know the experiences we have. Every Nigerian, any Nigerian is always skeptical when it comes to sharing anything. So this government now, it is incumbent on them. It behoves them to be able to monitor what is going on. And also, we have also said there has to be a publishing, because if you have a register, there has to be a publishing of the names of people who have benefited from whatever you're giving out, where they are, and so on. And even the inclusion in the committee or the people who are disbursing it. Of course, there are NGOs that are very good in those things. Labor unions are there as a way of creating intentional transparency. So if that is done, of course, everybody should know that the palliatives that we're talking about, why is NLC saying, government, you have to do what you have to do, otherwise we'll go on strike? It is the issue of palliatives. Now it has come. Because we have always known that staying in Abuja and throwing all of those things to states doesn't work. So get the states involved, get local governments involved, get NGOs involved, get labor and all this, get them involved so that when you have yours, it trickles down better. This is a better way of sharing whatever palliatives that has to be shared. Now, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs was responsible solely for doing that in the past. Of course, the ministry doesn't have, they have their register. They have offices, but the point there is that people complain of not feeling the impact or not even seeing anything. We are here in Lagos. We've never seen anybody come to our areas to say, okay, this is what the federal government, or maybe they feel where we live is highbrow.
Okay. Maybe. Anyway, back to my issue, which has to do with the register. What is the yardstick? If you say you want to have something comprehensive, what is the yardstick to determine who now becomes a part of that register? If we are saying we want to have a comprehensive register, as we speak, every Nigerian, Mike, needs to benefit from this palliative.
We all need help.
We all need help. The belt has been tightened to the last
To the last hook.
as it is for most persons.
Yeah.
And as much as we see government taking a step, Nigerians want it to trickle to the very last person saying, I got something from government. Yes, government has put measures in place. I got something. Because if you are saying 100,000 bags of rice for Lagos State, for instance, who are the persons that will get it? The population in Lagos State is more than 100,000. We cannot say that, okay, it's just perhaps 10% of Lagosians, you might say, may not necessarily need it because they are at a certain level. But how about the rest persons? How do we disburse these things? What determine? Are we going to say, okay, you have a bag of rice for one street, or what is the plan?
Yeah.
You know, these things have to trickle down. That's the issue. Every single person is feeling the pinch. That's my concern.
I totally agree with your concern, and I have it too. But the point there is, every administration that comes will always ask to be given the benefit of the doubt, and they have learned from the past. Government is a continuum, but the persons who are involved in this whole process are not the same persons.
Absolutely.
But the issue there is, the average Nigerian doesn't want to know if the people are different. Government remains government. Federal government remains federal government. State government remains state government. So the strategy of distribution for Yobe State will not be the same strategy for distribution in Akwa Ibom State.
Or even in Lagos.
Or even in Lagos, or even in Kano, as the case may be, or in Kogi, or in Kwara State. The point there is there are peculiarities regarding how how people, the housing patterns are, the wards and places that need all of these things. So the issue there is every state will, since states are now involved in the process, they will now know how to trickle these things down to wards and to people and to special places, orphanages and all of that need all of these things. And not only all those vulnerable places need help. We all need help, like we were saying earlier. The only thing there is that the dimension of the help can be different. Because if you're sharing, like we're saying sometime, if you're going to share 8,000 naira to a household, for instance, of course, like the governor of Nasarawa State at the time said, 8,000 means a lot to some people, which is true.
Absolutely.
But the point there is, if you do that across the board, they come to your house to give you 8,000. What will 8,000 do for you?
I'll back you.
You won't even go anywhere. Even your recharge card, you won't even enter your recharge card. But the point there is, the issue there is, everybody needs that assistance one way or the other.
Yeah.
That is why now that states are involved, now that other stakeholders are involved, now there is that working out a strategy as to how to ensure that people get access to some of these palliatives, rather than waiting in the past where everyone stays in the humanitarian affairs is in Abuja and then decides to distribute everything across the country, which doesn't really work. You know, so I believe this is a better strategy of getting these things down. This is, if you see the monies, 52% grant and 48% to be repaid in about 2 years, as the case may be, it already tells you that this is a federal and state government partnership in giving out palliatives. So that's the thing. And they have also given the palliative to state governments by themselves. So they are not removing the monies from their pocket now. Federal government has handled that. The only thing there is that you'll be paying back gradually for 2 years. So they've also given states palliative. That's what this thing means.
Yes.
So the point is, if you look at the design, this design is
different.
Better. It's better and it's more inclusive, and of course, it brings in more stakeholders in. The only thing we're saying now is that publish the names.
Transparency.
Let people know what you're doing, so that if there's transparency, you won't hear anybody say.
So now is the time for persons within such states. Now you know your governor has gotten 5
billion.
Now hold him to account. Ensure you put pressure groups, whichever organization,
NLC,
NGOs,
this is number one, NLC. Now, champion that course.
Yes. Now you should begin to follow the money to know how it is being spent. The grains, the fertilizers, know how it is being disbursed, if you have a better plan that would ensure that all of these things trickle down, then you can say, okay, bring suggestions to the government. Let's do this. Involve persons. Engage governments. Everything is not about strike. This is where we need you now, NLC, to come in and begin to engage state governments. You have your chapters everywhere. Let them begin to engage government to see how they can ensure that every person in a particular state at least benefits from all of this palliative that is being given.
Yeah, we know that there are some state governments that might, of course, at times like this, most of the states won't do everything the same.
All right.
We know that there are some states that will do everything 100% the way it is written down. There are other states that might do 80% and then decide to keep them, especially for states that are owing salaries and all of that. They could be tempted to use part of that money to augment salaries, because there could be the argument that, after all, it is the same people we're paying the monies to as a way of assisting them.
Yeah, the ones.
But yeah, no, of course, we
assuming.
What we are just assuming, because sometimes when these things come this way, they don't do everything the same way as it is done. We just hope this is going to be different.
We can only hope. Let's leave the conversation here now as we hope.